And thank you for joining us. And thank you if you joined us yesterday. Yesterday was our second best day in the history of America Mayor Live. I think second best.
We've had a few up there.
Do we have any others?
We've had a few up there.
So yesterday, I don't think we had.
We've had more than one.
I thought our best day we had 5-something million. Right?
Maybe 6 or 7.
Oh, well, I remember. Yeah, it could be even more than that. We'll have to go back and look. But over time, it may have grown. But back at the time, it was about 5.5 million. And we've had I'm not going to say a lot of millions, but we've had a fair number. It's not like totally unusual to be at 1 million. Yeah. And we had, I don't know, do we ever have any in the 2 millions?
Yeah.
I think we've had one in the multiple 1 millions, and we've had one at 5. But yesterday we were at 3 million, right?
Yeah.
3 million?
3.2.
3.2 million. So thank you. And come back. We're going to do the same thing, except it'll be different subjects. Here's our job. Here's how I define the mission, the raison d'etre, for why Ted and I do this. We do this because we want to bring to you both news items that you're not going to get somewhere else. Or if you're going to get it somewhere else, you're going to get it in best case scenario, reduced form, more usually false form, that will make it completely not understandable. And you are not, over a period of time, going to have a really good sense of what's going on around you. So you can make critical decisions for yourself and your family that make sense. Yeah, it's like, I mean, we're not quite AI, which it means we're just a product of what's put in us. In fact, if we were, this country would be in much worse shape. We do all have the ability to have critical intelligence and critical analysis. And no matter how much they brainwash us, we can have our own point of view. But, that we're not talking now the majority of people. So things have changed a lot in the presentation of news since Donald Trump became president in 2016, 2017. In fact, there was an analysis, and I'll go back and get it and see if I can get him as a guest. It was an English an analyst of radio, television, podcast, whatever. He told me, and maybe it was Steve Bannon, he told a couple of us, that if the number of podcasts, independent broadcasts, in which I would say like us and Dan Bongino, and of course Steve, and so many other really good people who have these let's call them independent networks. If they were the same percentage in 2020 as they were in 2024, we would have both. We would have won the 2020 election by so much they wouldn't have been able to affect it by whatever skullduggery they did, and that the skullduggery that they did would have been taken much more seriously, and January 6th never would have been able to have been falsified. That the percentage of people that now get their news, or at least get some gloss on their news from independent commentaries, is almost at, if not at 50% now. And since that happened, it's all gone up. And it doesn't mean we all agree with each other all the time. But, sometimes it's even better if we don't, and you watch a group of us, because then you get to pick and choose what you agree with. What I try to do is challenge you, give you the information, sometimes give you both sides of the argument if it's necessary, but try to get you to look at these things, but to see the historical connections. Like, let's take the threats, which are maybe the top of the news today, and there are two different two different versions of them. One is the press conference that was held earlier today, in which they talked about the attempt back on July 4th of these people who were going to attack the fight that was held, on national television, and their objective was to kill as many members of the Trump and as many members of the administration as possible, and then anybody else they could get a shot at. Now, that got foiled by the FBI and other agencies, including some of the local agencies, picking this up in advance. So it never got to the point of we could find out exactly what they had in mind. But because they got into it, they have some pretty good details on what they were planning. This is the one where one of the mothers called up because she was very concerned and overheard her son talking about doing something like that. Well, I mean, that's an extraordinary mother who, in a way, is doing the best thing for her son, because in the kind of situation they seem to be planning, the chances they'd all been killed would be really tremendous. I mean, there's snipers on type. This is not doing this, and these people did not seem to me like they were number one sharpshooters of the United States military. They seem, frankly, like a bunch of jerk-offs. And they'd have gotten killed. I mean, you'd have to. If you attack the White House with a military force, they're going to repulse you. I mean, I'm not going to give away everything they have. Just assume they got everything. This is not. They're not going to cover a roof. This isn't the screw up of Butler County. It's just the opposite. Particularly under the tense circumstances they're operating right now. I worry sometimes, somebody will get a little, not their fault. I mean, the pressure is tremendous. Now, here's what I don't think has been conveyed to all of you. When this second plot, which is, just in case you haven't seen it, and it was extraordinary that it's like, way down below the fold in the Wall Street Journal. Well, thank you. I mean, good. I should really just take that back. Nobody else put it on the front page. This is verifiable now by our own intelligence, by Israeli intelligence, that there was a specific plot to kill the president. That was discovered. This is beyond what I was just talking about. The president mentioned it yesterday because it leaked out. What you should know is that happens and you don't know about it. That happens and I don't know about it. I'll sometimes pick it up when it starts to enter the gossip territory, or the derivation of it came from some of my people that I work with, because MEK, NCRI, and their affiliates, they're not the only ones who pick it up, but they do pick up some of these, or they hear about the situation because whatever, they obviously run into the Mossad and the work they do. So this was a Mossad original, verified by us, to the extent that we had to fit it into our patterns. And the best guess is, and this is pure guess, and could be totally wrong, but there is a chance that had something to do with taking the new Air Force One out of service for a period of time, for which no good reason has yet been given, except it coincides around the time of the threat. So I'm giving you what I know. But here's the other thing that I know. When the president heard about this, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, they have a threat to kill me? The threats to kill President Donald J. Trump go back to, at least my knowledge, 2018. They go back to before that, but the ones that I know about. It's a constant threat. He's their number one target. Number one in the world. And even before Soleimani, After he did it in Soleimani, my goodness. And then, of course, all week they're holding a funeral. This wasn't a funeral. This was a rally to kill Trump. I've never seen signs this big to kill him. Not done by the people, done by the IRGC and the government. The people are just the people that are demonstrating for them because they're going to get killed if they don't. And of course, if they demonstrate the other way, 30 to 40,000 of them have been killed. So please understand, it is an ongoing objective of the Reign of Terror to kill a lot of their enemies. They've attempted twice that I know of with me. And then you have to assume if you've been on their target list, if they get a shot at you, they're going to take it. So all that does is make the point that I keep trying to make now for about 13 years. They got to be taken out. They have to be bye-bye. No more regime of terror. Sorry, this is the last time you yell death to America. You've done it too often, and you've killed too many Americans. And you have a frightening passion to kill us. And although you don't achieve a lot of what you set out to do, you do achieve some. Do we have any videos, Ted, of their demonstrations with the large killed Trump signs?
Yes, we do. So these are pictures, video that we've seen at the ongoing funeral for the deceased.
So what they did with the funeral was they held it over 5 days of travel. I think it was an 8-day funeral altogether, but 5 days of travel outside of Tehran to the other cities. So this is now in the second biggest city of Iran called Mashhad, I think is the way. It happens to be the hometown of our good friend Alireza Jafsardari. And he's mentioned that several times, but also happened to be the hometown of one of the worst and most evil men in the history of the world, which is Ayatollah Khomeini. So he's being brought to rest there, although one would think it's a demonstration to kill Trump rather than a funeral of their religious leader. We will kill Trump. That's the one that's the major one. Then there must be about 50 or 60 small versions of that all throughout the crowd. Now, now you're looking at that, right? Why don't you play advisor to the president for a moment? You're watching that, okay? You know that this is authorized by the government. You know there are a lot of people that want to go out there, probably 5 times more than what you're seeing, and want to demonstrate against the government. You know that because they were. And they've killed an unthinkable number of them in a short period of time because they are very good killers. So the bare minimum numbers on how many they have killed, both by public execution and then just by shooting them down on the street, is between 30 and 40,000 people. So the people you're watching here, there may be some true believers, but by and large, these are people forced to do it. And the people that would do a counter demonstration will not come out; otherwise, they're going to be dead. So this isn't spontaneously organized. And if you think it is, you really are a jackass. This expresses what the regime wants to do. Now, if they also by allowing this, right? So they have shadow cells and what sleeper cells. They have sleeper cells all over the world. We have no idea how many they have in the United States because Biden let them in freely for 4 years. Biden had no idea who he was letting in. So how many sleeper cells are there in the United States? How many people in the United States, and how often have we watched people that were influenced on their own by these movements and are self-actualized Islamic terrorists? You get a couple of them sitting at home. Isn't this a signal from their God to kill Trump to an unknown number of maniacs all over the world. Not only the organized IRGC groups, but the nut jobs they've been able to help develop. And we have an unknown number of them in our country because of the open border policy, which of course was completely insane. So tell me how you make peace with these people. If you're an advisor to the president and you want President Trump to take the action that is the best for the security of the American people, because not just President Trump. I mean, it's not. They also, we're not going to go over all the names. You know, all the people they've threatened, the attempts they've made. So you look at the analysis that was made by the group that was arrested for July 4th. They were after Trump, but then they had everybody else on the list. Hegseth and Rubio and Jared Kushner and this one and that one and this one and that one and this one and that one. What this is doing is creating a fervor for murder and beyond. Not only igniting their organized groups but igniting the nuts that they don't have necessarily a direct control over, but they have indirect control. In fact, they don't even know what they're igniting when they do this, but it isn't good. So all this argues in favor of the sooner and the faster we do away with this regime, the safer the world will be. This is not a regime to be signing an agreement with. First of all, they're not going to keep it. And second, they're going to do what they have been doing since we started doing MOUs and all this other crap with them, and which is to kill us. I think the president, if I read him correctly, particularly his having said himself that they're insane and they're cuckoo and they are evil. And when he talked about, are you negotiating? He said they want to negotiate, and it's up to Jared and Steve and the vice president if they want to negotiate. Now, if he wanted negotiations, he would say direct them to negotiate. It's as if he's telling you that he's come to the conclusion that he's had it. So last night we did hit him again.
Last night, yep. Over a dozen targets last night, or at least over a dozen IRGC targets.
Yes. Remember their strategy the first night was purely clean out that long stretch along the Iranian coastline of the Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf, that leads to and goes beyond the Straits of Hormuz. That was their first night objective. Take out as much of the ammunition they have there, as much of the guns. In other words, the things they could use to block shipping. The second night, there were more attacks. I don't know if there were more attacks along the Gulf, probably the equal number, or maybe even less. But the attacks started to move inland, and they started taking out IRGC headquarters. That's the big one they hit in Tehran. And last night, the shift now, they hit targets along the Gulf, but the shift was more inland, hitting military targets inland, taking out a bridge, for example, that was one that was used for the movement of a lot of material from China and Russia to Iran. That bridge was taken out last night, destroyed, and a number of other bridges. So we'll know we're satisfied that we've cleaned up the Gulf when all of the attacks are inland. I don't know what the end game here is. There are people predicting this is a slap at them to see if they'll come around. These attacks are too intense to just be a slap at them. They would have ended by now. The first night was enough to some wise guys, not administration, not official, have called this Operation Bitch Slap, suggesting it's not a long-term war. It's just I think that might have been a good name for the first night. It would start to suggest it's a lot more than that and by the third night, this is an ongoing attempt to destroy them. Without saying that, Israel has announced they're ready. Haven't been called on yet. There is a certain feeling in Israel that two sets of feelings. One is that they maybe complicate things too much if they're involved in it. And number two, it does relieve them of having to defend themselves every night. Maybe, just maybe, they were strained a little with missiles, or they have to. Those missiles have to be used for other things. And right now, Israel has had the laboring war in this war, and this, let's call it, this effort to destroy this regime of terror, all during the Biden administration. Israel is a great ally, but this is the greatest military in the history of the world. That's not a drone, by the way, which you're looking at right now. That's not a drone. Notice no contest. Where are the defensive missiles? If you saw something like that going on above Tel Aviv, right? What would you see in the air? What would you see in the air? You would see missiles trying to stop our missiles. How about they don't have any left? I mean, we haven't been, we own the skies over Iran. We can fly over it without fear of being attacked. And if we are going to get attacked, it'll be a sporadic attack here or there, and there's a very good chance we can fight it off. We're getting to take free shots at them. And this is a military power. Oh, and then, I wonder if the New York Times still thinks that Iran is winning the war, Ted.
Right.
That looks like a winning. Be hard to even look at that and say the country winning is the one getting bombed.
Right.
So why do you read the New York Times? They don't even deliver valuable information any longer. And then, maybe they'll have a twist on it that's theirs, but they just leave out the information that would allow you to come to a legitimate conclusion. A lot of people say, and I agree with this, that the president has both a new strategy in Iran, which is what I think it is. Bomb them into regime change. That's what I think it is. As well as other things that are going on that aren't going to be acknowledged. I think the only way America can be safe, America first, is when this regime is gone. As long as this regime is around, they'll be plotting to do what they vow religiously to do every week, and now every day during their religious services for their murdering Ayatollah. Death to America. If we let them stay, if we let them exist long enough, they may accomplish it. So they have to be wiped out. When people are demonstrating to kill you, you have to get rid of them. Particularly ones that have already demonstrated that this isn't just polemics. They've killed more Americans than probably any country, gotten away with it. More acts of war they've gotten away with. That'd be an interesting analysis for history, but let's just stop it. A lot of people think that Ankara was a turning point in the Ukraine war. And I would say they're right. And of course, it was the decision that's been held up for quite some time now to either give them both, to give them Patriot interceptor missiles and or allow them to use some that they have. And Trump went one beyond that. He said he's going to permit Ukraine to produce U.S. licensed Patriot interceptor missiles, which means really we'll be producing them jointly. And they will help us open up more and more avenues for manufacture, which is a problem, given the fact that we're going to need a lot more arms quickly after what we've used. So Pete Hegseth and Deputy Secretary Feinberg have begun this program of utilizing every resource possible, like we did in the Second World War, so that we're ready to have not just the kind of force that we have, but overwhelming, beyond what we're going to need, arms and missiles, and also at the same time on the softer side or the less expensive side, but still a creative side, to get ourselves way beyond what's necessary for appropriate drone warfare, both offensive and defensive. These are the changes that are going on as we speak. But to President Trump's credit, he began this when he first came into office. The first deal that he did was with Taiwan to get the special chips that only they make, produced in the United States to duplicate what's being done in Taiwan. And they're well along in building those factories now. Russia is doing what it can to take advantage of a diminishing advantage that they have, which is that they have missiles that Ukraine for a while was unable to really intercept, because they need these Jupiter interceptor missiles. Well, they're getting them, and which could very much change the complexion of this war. As they demonstrated last night, they already have missiles that can go 2,000 miles into Russia, and as they demonstrated by hitting Omsk, which is on the Asian border, they're not unwilling to use it. When we come back, we'll bring you up to date on the Charlie Kirk case, as it pretty much really ends. Not just, I think it's going to end not just for the weekend, but I think the judge has had enough. Although very strangely, and this really disturbs me and a lot of other people, he's not going to announce a decision on this until September. This is not a jury trial. This is not a verdict. This is a very simple question. Is there enough evidence to take this to trial? Not is he guilty, but is there enough concern and evidence to take him to trial? There's enough evidence to convict him 4 times. Right. We'll be covering that when we come back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Well, welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani, and let's talk a little about the Charlie Kirk case. And every time I say it, and I say it quickly, the emotion isn't there immediately, because you treat it as another news item, and then all of a sudden you stop and you go back to the day that you saw that. Now, I have known Charlie since he was really a young man. And when he was first getting started, and it's not possible to have had more regard for him. And what he was doing was so effective. My take on this is, although this is the guy obviously who did it, there's more behind this. I'm not into any of those insane. I'm not talking about any of those insane Candace Owen. Tucker Carlson, these crazy things. I mean, I have no idea what's wrong. Even like, I don't know what's wrong with her. It sounds to me like she's jealous or something, or insanely jealous. But in any event, of all the people to take out in the Save American Western Civilization movement, which they would call MAGA or right wing or whatever, Charlie was the most frightening to them. He was among the very best, but conceivably you could argue there were others that were as effective or more effective right now. But none of them were as young as he was. So if you're going to take somebody out, you might as well get rid of 4 decades or 5 decades of problems for your desire to destroy our civilization, and to influence the young people who you've invested so much in. This has been a major investment of the communist movement, and to some extent of the Islamicist movement. And here's a guy reversing it in large numbers, going to campuses and challenging your bullshit better than anybody has ever done, and with a natural appeal for it. So you get a chance to take out one guy. So this was a 5-day preliminary hearing that we had, and this is an alternative to a grand jury indictment. Now, as it logically would make sense to you, right? Charges are to bring charges. You don't need the same level of proof that you need for conviction. You may have it, but you don't need it. So cases, criminal and civil, get decided on the facts based on standards levels that have to be reached. The highest of which is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's in order to convict someone of a crime and, in essence, have the ability to take their liberty away. That has to be, when you're going to take somebody's liberty away, that's the highest evidence, level of evidence. There's a second level called clear and convincing evidence. Clear and convincing evidence is used for significant fraud cases and where tremendous judgments are going to be involved of large amounts of money, which may not put you in prison, but may in fact bankrupt you or destroy you. And then there's beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the lowest level of proof. Then there's a probable cause, sorry. And that's the lowest level of proof that allows you to go forward with the investigation or with the case or with the search, where you're still in the process of trying to develop evidence, but you have enough evidence to go to trial. So that's all that had to be reached here. Now, I don't. You got. Of course, this Robinson guy is technically innocent, meaning he can't be punished until he is proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a standard for a jury and for the court. It isn't a standard for us in analyzing the evidence. So the state could have presented evidence, and it could have been very close, right? It might have been just let's say there wasn't the confession. I would say this is kind of a bad example to my law school class here. This is kind of a bad example because even without the confession, with the evidence that they had and the surveillance evidence that they had and the DNA evidence they had and particularly the surveillance evidence, DNA evidence, fingerprints. That's certainly enough to indict. It makes it a little bit closer a criminal case. I'm saying if you didn't have the confessions. But I think it's a winnable criminal case. It might not be a high enough standard of proof for the death penalty, however. Later on, at the end, you're going to find the standard of proof goes up again. But here you've got it on both. You've got it. Here you've got a level of circumstantial evidence that is about as overpowering as you're going to get. And you can convict just on circumstantial evidence. And there are jurisprudence experts who would tell you that circumstantial evidence in many ways is more reliable than direct evidence, meaning observation evidence. But of course, there's not much more reliable than confessions and admissions, and particularly if they could be corroborated. And the testimony yesterday from the Twigs man, or I guess he's a man. I don't know what he thinks he is, but as far as we can tell, he's biologically a man. If I counted correctly, Robinson confessed to him 3 times. And it's not just his recollection. It's in writing. And it's better in some ways than a police confession, where you could say there was coercion or fear, or these were voluntary confessions, kind of like Hunter Biden's confession, ignored completely, confession, that he gave half his money to his father for 35 years, which then you look what the source of his money was, and that a judge can charge a jury with evidence of that quality that you can convict a person on that admission or confession alone, if you believe it beyond a reasonable doubt, because it gets you to beyond a reasonable doubt. So that, so the judge has to determine what a grand jury usually determines, but they have the alternative in Utah of having a judge do it. He has to discern, is there probable cause for the case to proceed to trial? And it's a little whether it's in the law or not, it's in the sensitivities of a decent judge that when the government is asking for, or the state is asking for the death penalty, you got to have more evidence than just probable cause. So they presented forensic testimony that DNA was found on the alleged murder weapon, and that based on the probabilities of DNA, it was in the high 90% that it was Tyler Robinson. Surveillance video that you got to see some of that shows Robinson on a rooftop exactly around the time of the shooting and then fleeing exactly after the shooting was over. Testimony from Twiggs, his roommate and lover, that Robinson admitted responsibility afterwards 3 different times in 3 different ways. The defense challenged the reliability of the DNA analysis, but that's going to end up being a question of fact for the jury. And whether the ballistic evidence links the recovered bullet fragments to the rifle that the prosecutors say was used. Again, that's going to be left to the jury to decide. But they really had no defense to the confessions and to the surveillance tape that you're seeing right there. So Judge Graft will hear legal arguments at the end of the summer. It sounds like he wants a summer vacation, after which he's going to decide whether there's sufficient evidence to hold Robinson over for trial. And if he does, there'll be a full capital murder case. What is the reason for putting it off until September 1st? Does he think there's going to be a guilty plea? There could be. I mean, there isn't much of a defense strategy left. They raised the idea of a modified mental illness or reduced responsibility conviction by his not being all there, one would say. And they withdrew that. And a lot of that is because the deliberation with which he committed this crime, which you can see on video, would absolutely destroy a mental illness defense, which in many ways almost admits that you did it. I did it, but I'm nuts, so I shouldn't be held responsible for it. So they would rather, they decided about a month ago, they'd rather contest the fact that he did it rather than his state of mind. Well, that was a dumb move. Now, I don't know why everyone is saying, who's analyzing this, is the defense was surprised and they were shocked. They have to change their strategy. Didn't we know that all this evidence existed? What did they think, the government was lying? I mean, at the time we were covering this, we saw a lot of this video, and we heard that he had confessed to his boyfriend, and we even saw some of those. Communications, and we saw it. We saw it. You and I, the public. Boy, they don't watch television. The defense. But nothing happened here that shocked me. I knew. The only question I had was, and I pretty much assumed they're going to do it this way. Would they let Twiggs testify at the hearing? But of course not. Of course not. You don't want him to get 2 shots of cross-examining him. You don't. You can use hearsay in a hearing like this. So save your witness. I happen to also think they have in their pocket 2, 3 other witnesses. It's pretty obvious when you listen to this that remember at one point before he does it, he goes and he talks to some of the some students. You don't think they have those students? And who knows what he said to them? He wasn't careful. So this is you better get a guilty plea if you don't want to get executed. And maybe they won't give it to you. It'd be unusual because no matter what, and no matter how overwhelming this case is, something can go wrong. And if you've got this guy willing to plead guilty and life in prison, no parole, no nothing ever, maybe you take it. And you also save the family from having to go through a trial of this. They've now, from the family's point of view, this did accomplish another purpose, and that is to show that the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons and the whole group of people trying to create alternatives, vicious, horrible alternatives, trying to suggest that Charlie's organization had something to do with it.
That his wife had
His
something to do
wife
with it.
had something to do with it. Get lost. How vicious are you? Well, this kind of ends the whole. We now know who did it. So the judges are all concerned that one part of the notes here was briefly flashed. Somebody should tell the judge we've already seen it. The stuff that he was protecting coming out, I already have it from last. This was revealed before. I don't think Judge Graff, who was a former prosecutor, has ever had a big case before. Because he looks better now. At the beginning, he looked like he was going to have a little heart attack. He looked so nervous in handling this. The prosecutors and the defense lawyers seem much more comfortable having done this before than he did. But maybe he'll grow into it. But this decision here, because his decisions on the evidence were largely correct. Even the withholding it from the public has to balance the need that the family has to make clear the overwhelming evidence against them, so they stop these attacks on the family against the guy's right to a fair trial. And it's the right answer. You always have to. You're not doing the family much of a favor if you create reversible error and you're not able to convict this guy, or probably you're never going to get to that, but it could take you 3 or 4 years to convict him. So I think the judge, that was a wise decision to hold a lot of that back. And enough of the confession and the confession to Twiggs sort of answers. It isn't just, you don't have to. I mean, some people today were saying, I love these experts on trials who probably never have tried a case. So in my case, if you're listening to me, I've tried so many, I can't remember the number. This evidence is extraordinary, and it doesn't come from Twiggs. It comes from him. It's like he's talking to you. It's like the murderer is talking to you. He's talking about the gun that he used to kill him. The question is, was that the gun that killed Charlie? Were those the bullets from that gun? How about, why do we need forensics? Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I do think that was a $2,000 scope, though. He's bragging about his grandfather's gun. Then he starts talking about if he's caught by the police, he's going to act confused. I'll say I left it with him at a compound or some other more likely excuse. Only thing, he's telling his lover, only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Well, it was found wrapped in a towel. I'll bet that the canine sniffled it out, the dog, right? Little snitching bastard. Replace is unlikely. I don't fully know what the gun was because it was old as shit, and Gramps did some modifying. There was a 4-digit serial on it. God only knows who it's registered to. Hopefully some dead guy who gave it to Grandpa. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme, mine or meme, which is the right pronunciation of that? Meme. If I see Justices bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. Now, that's a reference to a man's penis that's used by these weirdos, these furry people, that UWU. The other meme that he uses, one that's used by, I think it's used by one of the terrorist groups. I'll check which one it is. I don't want to say that without being absolutely sure. But nobody in the media, is bothered to tell you that. This is what creates some of the conspiracy theory stuff when they hold stuff back. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I'll have left no evidence. I'm going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully, they have moved on. I haven't seen anything in the news about them finding it. Well, hasn't he read enough novels about this to know that they hold back evidence? We'll update you by midnight. All right. So there are questions with regard to Twigs. Why didn't Twigs turn him in? This guy turned himself in with his father and neighbor. Twigs is withholding all this. He knows within a day who the murderer is. Maybe he could have got into a shootout with the cops. Now, I think the state made a deal with him to get his testimony, so he's going to go scot-free.
I mean,
it had a serial number that won't trace to me, but I worry about prints. Well, yeah, you should, because now we have to wonder if the prints are accurate, and he tells us I'm worried about prints. We have to worry if the DNA is accurate, and he tells us that he had the gun. This is getting kind of stupid with regard to the defense. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits, didn't have the ability or time to bring it with me. Where is it found? In a towel in a bush.
look at the destruction that these left-wing
Yes, he says, check the internet. He wants them to help them. See if they found it. I don't see anything. He doesn't. I don't see anything about it on the internet. So here he is making jokes about men's genitals, making jokes about the gun and how effective this old gun was. And then he's straight out asked by his lover, did you do it? And he says, yes. Okay. And we're going to wait until September, Judge. Now I'm going to step back just one bit. Okay. And I'm going to say, maybe there's something going on we don't know in terms of negotiations and plea, that sort of stuff. I hope so. Because I generally like the judge. I thought for a guy who's handling his first big case, he looked a little overwhelmed by it. But you go through the rulings and they're almost all correct. They're almost all correct. If any are wrong, they're not materially wrong. And then he goes ahead and talks about the etchings that he did on the bullets. Hey, fascist. The bulge thing about a penis, and the numbers that he put on it. So I do hope, and I pray to God, and we're getting near the end here. We'll just include it in our prayers at the end for Erica and Charlie's mom and dad, and that this helps.
Look at the destruction that's been done to that perfect family. Look at that. Charlie, Kirk.
Oh, I can't look at that. That reminds me of what I used to look at when I would give the eulogies at the funerals of the firefighters and police officers. And what a beautiful couple. My God, what a beautiful couple.
catastrophe.
And do you remember? You remember? I mean, your mind goes back to when you saw him getting shot and what happened to
Oh
him.
my God. Yep.
Those kids are going to grow up without a daddy.
Yeah.
They're going to grow, and what a daddy!
And the kid that did it is going to spend the rest of his freaking life in a jail cell.
If he makes a guilty plea,
Or
if the moron
think
goes
he's
to
facing a
trial,
death
they'll
penalty.
how do they kill him? A firing squad or hanging or
I want to say Utah might have been the last one to use the firing squad. No, South Carolina.
yeah.
they should do it on the 6 o'clock news.
Anybody who's hanging anymore?
We haven't seen a hand.
It is out west.
Yeah,
But-
we haven't seen that in a while.
But the point being, look at the destruction that these woke left-wing policies lead to, not only for the victims, but even for the perpetrators, right? His family is ruined, his parents, they can't even believe what he did. It's all because of an ideology that's being brainwashed into people's heads. It's turning people into stunad. And they're destroying their lives. They're destroying other people's lives. What is with this? Well, when are people going to wake up?
When Twiggs asked his lover if he was the one who did it, Robinson responded, I'm so sorry. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out.
There's no hate. Somehow he construes that as hatred. A guy who's properly informing the youth.
He even made comments on which of the figures that they have, or which of the images they have on tape looked more like him than others, acknowledging that they were all him. Well, there's a poll with a little time to go. We'll mention it. There's a poll which is a disturbing and annoying one. Except it was. I don't see the point of releasing it. This was done before the July 4th celebration, which I think may have lifted the spirits a little. And it shows that only 48% of Americans believe that capitalism is working, compared to 60% who believed it 10 years ago. Over half said that capitalism was not working too well or not at all well. 12% of Americans believe democracy is working extremely well. 56% said it's working not very well. Only 35% of Americans still believe in the American dream. A majority don't. This was all before we celebrated our 250th anniversary. Only 40% of the people that responded said they were very proud of American history. Now, that's a product of communist infiltration of the teachers' unions and of the schools and of our academic enterprise from day one to up to the top. You know, this early education, that the communists love so much, like Mondani and whatever, that's in order to brainwash your kids like Stalin and Hitler wanted to do. And Marx told them to do. Get them when they're 2 and 3 years old so the parents can't have any influence on them. And then we all buy into this like it's going to improve their education. Now New York City's been doing it for 20 or 25 years. And the results in New York City are a mere shadow of what they used to be when I was mayor. We didn't do very much of it. And we had problems in the school system when I was mayor. But it's so much worse than that. Half the schools can't read and write. Two-thirds of Republicans, however, are very proud. Only 20% of Democrats. Half of Republicans believe in over half Republicans believe in American exceptionalism. 8% of Democrats believe in American exceptionalism. Isn't it time to, here's the Democratic Party charter. Start over.
Oh, yeah.
Get rid of the history of slavery. Get rid of the history of Jim Crow. Get rid of the history of communist infiltration. Get rid of the history of the insane people you're now running for office.
The influence is now inverted to where now the question of parents having influence over their children. No, now it's the children coming home from these Marxist indoctrination camps, and they're influencing the parents. The parents are starting to talk like the kids because they don't want to lose touch with their kids. They see their kid disappearing.
And there's one socialist candidate after another that's running. Milot Kiros defeated Representative Diana DeGette, who's a left-wing Democrat in office for something like 28 years. This Milot Kiros is for universal health care, child care, grabbing the kids probably before they're even born, if you let them get born, like abortion up until the moment they're born, which means you have to crush their skull, Milot. He's also a Jew hater. Written on that. And he was thrown out of the Sidley and Austin law firm because he's an anti-Semite.
This Malthusian.
I'm sorry, she. I said he, she.
This Malthusian population control campaign has to end, and only you people can do it with your vote.
Yeah, what he means by that is to try to limit the population. I mean, that's what Planned Parenthood began as a eugenics operation. Eugenics was an idea of the left-wingers and the communists back in the Dewey days, Dewey, the educator who ruined American education, and all those people. And the idea was that we wanted it sort of fed into Hitler with the superior race and the big focus with blacks. We got to eliminate a lot of these blacks. They're going to introduce a very bad strain into our gene pool. Now, Planned Parenthood, who does the vast majority of baby killing in America, is getting its way because I can't imagine the statistics are too much different than a few years ago. In Harlem, more black babies were aborted than born. So they're looking down on this saying, yeah, we got those blacks. We got them where we want them. Well, they don't, because a lot of blacks have moved on into the lower middle class, upper class, and high upper class. But the poor ones left behind don't get any of this money, as you can see from the fraud that keeps getting revealed. It's all been stolen. Right. It may very well work out in some of these Democrat crooked states. And I can't tell you for sure, but I wouldn't fall off my chair if I found out they stole more money than they passed along to the poor. I wouldn't be surprised. And this is not based on just feeling. It's based on having become a Republican largely because of the corruption that I saw as a prosecutor in Democrat New York. Doraliza Avila Chevalier is the favorite of Mondani. And she beat a very, very a very powerful Democrat left-winger, Hispanic left-winger, Espaillat, from a sort of in their area, a dynasty family, and a questionable dynasty. Well, all the Democrats in New York are questionable. She's also very she's also very prolific. Taking down a lot of the stuff, but Joe Biden is a rapist. But we agree, I guess, although I don't know that he's a rapist. I think that girl that said he sexually abused her, gee, looking at the stuff they have on the Hunter Biden, there's a great deal of perversity in that family. Effing Kamala Harris, she called COVID-19 a European plague, and she pinned it on France. I mean, France is responsible for a lot of things, not COVID-19. It happens to be red Chinese. Hard for you, Avila, huh? Why? You know why. Right? So Plattner's gone. Paper's got to go in on Monday. He could have put him in early. Is this going to happen? He comes up again. I don't know, as Republicans, should we see, as an American, I'm glad he's out on the chance that he might have won and we'd get this maniac in the Senate. There are certain people that just shouldn't be allowed to serve. He's one of them. And I predict that before it's all over, and we're not going to have to wait too long, there are going to be some developments in this guy's private life. This guy is not even the usual political crook. This is a weirdo. And please take a look at Katz, his campaign manager, who with two others talked this asshole into running and kept denying it and kept him in it. And here's why. I think it's Michael Katz. Michael Katz is the genius that elected Mondami. Still very close to Mondami. He and two others went to this Plattner, whatever the hell he is, Nazi, and talked him into running. And here's why they talked him into running. They want a candidate for president by 2032 for sure, maybe 2028. Mondani can't be because he wasn't born in the United States. Thank God. So the one that now is the odds-on favorite to be a candidate of the United States Traders Party, whatever that is AOC.
Her.
They are convinced that AOC cannot win because she's a woman. I think they're convinced that AOC cannot win because she's a lighthead.
She's stupid. Yeah.
Who has trouble mixing drinks, much less politics, had trouble with the number of states that we have. And she was like majored in history. But you know, the history was fairy tales. She majored in fairy tales. So they don't want her to be the candidate in 2028 or 20. They want a male. Can't be Mondani. And they decided this guy was the guy. They're going to run him for president. And he's a great campaigner. And he has that sort of, they say, I never saw it really. He has that kind of charm. I see that a little bit in Mondani, by the way. I mean, Mondani can be deceptively seem like a very charming guy. He does very quickly seem like he's very light here, but he does seem like he's a nice guy until you start going beyond what he's saying. The other guy, I didn't see that, but maybe I from the beginning I knew the allegation. So he looks like when we saw him withdrawing, he looked like he should be in a hospital.
Oh yeah, he was ready to cry.
He was like the soccer players who get injured and get on the floor and cry all the time. Somebody goes like this to them.
If somebody did a bad deed to him,
you need to know that the New York Attorney General's office, I want to be Attorney General because I want to hang Donald Trump like in the old days in the West. Letitia James, who I know for a long, long time. Letitia runs positively the worst Attorney General's office in the United States with regard to investigating and successfully prosecuting Medicaid fraud. Now, that is of significance because she's in the state that gets the most money from Medicaid. California, put aside. New York, which is smaller, gets more money from Medicaid than anyone. And it is 51st, because they count the District of Columbia, in Medicaid prosecutions and 51st in successful Medicaid prosecutions, meaning it's the worst.
Wow.
And it's only 49th in the number of investigations it conducts. But they really shouldn't conduct investigations because more than any place else in America, the investigations end up in acquittals.
Between these people,
they can't win cases. It means they're shitty trial lawyers. The government doesn't lose most of its cases.
Yeah.
You got everything in your favor. You got to be terrible. And then maybe it's because they spent all their time trying to frame Trump. They don't do anything else. Yeah. Now, the Attorney General's office of New York, going back to when I was a law clerk, my judge used to say, anytime the Attorney General's office showed up, oh my God, Rudy, we're going to have so much work. I don't know if they on purpose hire assholes, but they don't know how to prosecute a case. So here it is. Here it is now. I became a law clerk in 1970. One of the first things he told me, and Paul Crotty told me, and Attorney General's office in New York, my God, they have a hard time knowing what an exhibit is. And I would watch them, and it was like pathetic. And the judge that I clerked for could not suffer fools gladly. He was an old timer. You learned when sometimes he was a little too tough. You say, he said, that's the way I learned. That's the way you're going to learn. I did. Now, we'll talk about that sometime when we have time. But the reality is, and of course, as you can imagine, all the bad numbers are in the blue states where they're stealing us blind on Medicaid, stealing us blind. So it looks like they're going to turn down. They're going to do away with their enforcement office, and the government should take it. The federal government should take it over. These are all federal crimes. More of it is federal money than anything else. These people can all be prosecuted for a federal crime. So just blow out the Attorney General's office. They don't do it well anyway. Terrible.
Between that and the Somalians, there's no surprise there's no money for anybody.
You know, it's going to turn out that the Somalians, although percentage-wise it's outrageous, 9 billion, 10 billion, 11 billion, that's going to be chicken change for New York.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to,
yeah.
is that
Well,
bad?
nobody steals. I guarantee you, California notwithstanding, nobody steals like New York. They started it with Boss Tweed, and all other Democrats learned from them. In New York, the honest Democrats are forced to cheat, so they learn how to do it just in case they have it. No, I'm kidding. There are some honest Democrats. There used to be a lot of them, like my family. And like Peter Vallone, who's as responsible for the turnaround in New York as I am. I couldn't have done it without him. He was the Speaker of the City Council. And of course, we had disagreements as Republicans and Democrats, but as Christians and good people, and we could always find a way. And he would find a whole group of Democrats that would come with him. Look, I ran for re-election as mayor, with about 1/3 of the Democrats in the city council endorsing me because they were impressed with how good a mayor I was.
What would they do with a Democrat like that now? They run him out of government, probably, right?
They'd make up charges on him. I'm surprised they don't do that to poor Fetterman.
Right.
I think Fetterman's too tough for them. I think they're afraid to do that to Fetterman. Fetterman strikes me as a guy that could really fight back. What a surprise! But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So this weekend, watch Iran closely. We're available. We'll come on if anything happens there or Ukraine. We'll come on if they find another platinum running on the Democrat ticket. There are probably about 8 or 10 of them hanging out all over the place. They're going to just keep coming out. And we will, and a couple of stories we're following that we want to talk to you about next week. I am very, very interested in, and maybe you could send us maybe they could, Ted, if they want to send us some notes over the weekend, what's the best way to do it? I want to know if you're interested, or am I just interesting myself in following this whole situation with the group of priests and bishops within the Catholic Church that were automatically excommunicated when they made their own bishops without the permission of the Pope in order to carry on not just the Latin Mass, but their version of traditional Roman Catholicism, which they believe was undercut by Vatican II. Now, don't get confused. There are two different types of groups of three different types of groups of priests, 4 different types of groups of priests who say the Latin Mass. The first group are actual Catholic priests in a diocese, in an order, and the bishop likes it and permits it. And they may do it 1 Mass a Sunday. They may do it 1 Mass a month. But they do it right in their church and right in their diocese. Okay, that's one group. Yeah, other bishops don't want the Latin Mass. The second group are a group that get permission from the bishop, because the Catholic Church, every part of the earth is a Catholic diocese. Doesn't mean there's Catholics in there are Catholics there, but not always a majority. And the bishop is in control. A bishop is the successor of one of the apostles. The Pope is the successor of the Apostle Peter, who was named the rock on which Christ would build his church. But the others are all successors of the apostles. They're the full flowering of the priesthood. Priests can do everything but two things. They can't ordain other priests. They can't give you confirmation. That can only be done by what one would call the full flowering of the priesthood. That's a bishop. Now, according to canon law, bishops have to be approved by the Pope. Bishops can ordain other bishops, but it should be with the Pope's permission. Now, you want to get really complicated. If they do it without the Pope's permission, it's called schism. Penalties excommunication. But the bishop is a bishop, because when you made the bishop who's doing the consecrating a bishop, you gave him this power forever as a priest. A priest never loses his sacramental powers. He's just prohibited from using them. It can be a sin if he uses them. So we're going to go into all this next week. And if you're interested, but tell me that. Maybe you're not, and I'll do a podcast on it. So I think there'll be big developments in Iran next week. I do. This can't go on this way for too much longer. And I'm going to go off now to Italian night at the minor league baseball park in Manchester. We're going to have a nice meal. And we'll be back with you on Monday. And we want to thank you immensely for the support you've shown for us. It means a great deal. God bless Ukraine. God bless the people of Israel. God bless the people of Iran. God bless us. And keep President Trump safe. And keep guiding him. You're doing a good job. And he's doing a good job. I shouldn't be telling you, God, that you're doing a good job, but you are. And of course, God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.